Hello everybody, this is Josh Runquist here for the Heavy Debriefings podcast, and I am going to be doing my very first type of metal / doing what everyone else has already done on YouTube YouTube video, and doing a list that's already on Tier Maker. Now the reason I'm going about this is because I've seen it so many times. There are people who do different types of things with these Tier Maker lists, and some people do it by the importance of the band. Some people do it by the legacy that they have. Whereas I am just going to go by what I enjoy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, is there? I wish more people would do that, but that's just the hand we are dealt, isn't it? So, gonna get started with this, going right into it. Here we go. It is the Metal Genres Tier List Maker. Now, it's gonna be going by what I believe is the Japanese grading rules of S, A, B, C, D, and Haven't Heard. But I am gonna be changing Haven't Heard to Redundant, because I've seen many people do this list already, and there is some redundant genres on here. Not many. Despite what some people say, there's not that many. But I do find it to be very, very important. Before we get started, I would just like to say, excuse my demeanor right now. Today has been in the mid-80s, and I am a fat man. And it is just starting to get less of that, so I need to go ahead and try to cool off. I have a big jug of water here with me. Big jug for a big guy. So I'm trying to cool off, but I'm also going to be possibly getting heated up by doing this genre list here for you. And yeah, might as well just go in alphabetical order here. And it looks like we're going to be starting with alternative metal, which I find to be many different things that it could be. They have Deftones' White Pony here. I go ahead and put that as a good definition of what alternative metal is, but I also find Seven Dust to be alternative metal. I find Faith No More to be alternative metal. I mean, there's a lot of influences that can really come about that. I see it from everything from the late 80s to now, and there's a lot of good material in it. There's also a lot of material that's not really my bag either. Deftones, for example, is a very hit or miss band for me. There's some albums I adore, and there's other ones that I couldn't care less about. Whereas Faith No More, for example, 6 perfect albums. So let's just call this one right down the middle here. And I'm going to go ahead and give this one a C. Now, funk metal, yes, I actually do think there is a difference between funk and alternative metal. When you have funk metal, they show Primus here, but there is a lot of things that can go about that as well when you got things that anything Les Claypool related, or you got some suicidal tendencies, or infectious grooves. There's a lot of different ways you can go about that. But funk metal is kind of also a C-ranged genre for me as well too. Mainly because I'm not as well versed in the genre. It's not something I despise or anything like that. But there's just not enough bands in the funk metal world that I pay attention to. Nu metal. D. Now, as I said before, a lot of people do this by the importance of what they are by music. I'm going by what I actually enjoy, which should be the whole point of the tier list, because if you're just going by one person's opinion of how important they are, well, you can just look at record sales and trends and stuff like that. You're not adding anything new to the conversation. Whereas with me, you're going to be seeing a little bit more about my personality here, and nu metal is 100% D for me. Wouldn't go F if there was an F, but I would go D. And for that very reason, rap metal is going into redundant, because, well, it's the same thing pretty much. Nu metal is based on rap and hip-hop and metal combined. And rap metal, which I think that's Rage Against the Machine for the background there, I don't see how that's very different than nu metal. And some people might think that's alternative metal as well. These are my rules. It's what I'm going by. Alright. Black metal. Now there's so many different ways that you can go about this, and there's a lot of different black metal ones on here, and in fact I'm gonna go ahead, if you're paying attention here, and I'm actually gonna be moving all of the black metal together just to make it a little bit easier on my end. Okay, I think we got that there. So what I'm gonna be going by this is by the not the raw definition, because there's already raw black metal on there, but I'm gonna go with bands that are kind of in that first and second wave, even into the third wave of black metal. You know, you got your Mayhem, you got your Dissection, you got Venom to an extent. I mean, there's a lot of bands that fall into this category, and it's one that I know this seems kind of weird for me to actually go about, but I'm actually going to put this one in C as well, mainly because there's subsections of black metal that I adore way more than black metal, and that includes one here with atmospheric black metal. Now, Black Gaze is on here, and we're going to be getting to that, but you know, as far as the atmospheric stuff, unfortunately it's got Burzum on there, so that makes me already want to put it in the D category because, you know, fuck Burzum. But I understand why they're doing that, and, you know, there is a thing to atmospheric black metal that is something to really be appreciated. But then again, you have an outlier like what's shown here with Burzum. So I'm gonna take Burzum here as the outlier and try to focus on the non-piece of shit bands that are part of atmospheric black metal and give it a B. Technical black metal. Now, there is a lot of bands that are starting to incorporate this. Maybe it's the wrong definition, but I'm gonna go with it anyways. I feel the band Tomorrow is a great example of technical black metal, and it's one of my favorite albums of the year. I highly recommend checking out the debut album from Tomorrow. And if there is more bands like that, where it's got that technical edge to it, but it's still got that black metal element to it, yeah, I'm actually gonna give that an A. It's fun. It's dark, it's heavy, it shows a lot of skill behind it, and it's more than your run-of-the-mill, everyday Burzum. And with that in mind, depressive black metal. Yeah, that is going to be another A for me as well too, because I'm a very depressive guy, and depressive black metal just hits the spot sometimes. There's a lot of great bands for it, and there's a lot of crappy bands out there too, especially in the lyrics department. In the vocal department as well, but sometimes there's some depressive black metal out there that just hits me so hard, and I love every single moment of it. Melodic black metal is S tier. It's one of my favorite genres, and there's gonna be more that are featuring on there. I know some people are just like, hey, you can only have like one S tier because blah 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 blah. No. To me, S is what I listen to the most, A is what I thoroughly enjoy, B is what I kind of enjoy, C is there, D is what I don't enjoy, and of course redundant is redundant. So yeah, I'm doing this differently, but for that reason, I'm okay with that. But melodic black metal, there is so much great melodic black metal out there, and it gives the genre the shot in the arm it really needs. Not shot in the face like Mayhem, I do mean shot in the arm. Pagan black metal. Now it depends again on how you look at this one, because is it something that is more along the lines of like Enslaved? Or Unleashed? Because if you're going that direction, I have to give it an A. Enslaved is one of my favorite bands of all time. Unleashed is another great band, and yeah, there's just a lot of great bands in the genre. And I'm gonna go by that definition. Of course, there could be something different that goes along with that, but that's my definition. Rock black metal, D. D for no. Kind of like what I was talking about with the atmospheric black metal. Raw black metal is the stuff that's recorded on Fisher-Price equipment. The vocals are absolutely wretched, and they sound like someone getting kicked in the nuts repeatedly. All you can hear is snare drum and cymbals, bass is non-existent, and the guitar tone is absolute ass. Of course there are exceptions to the rule, but not enough for me to take it out of D. But in the exact opposite of that, symphonic black metal, going all the way up to the top here. Yeah, symphonic black metal, when you got stuff like Emperor is the shining example of symphonic black metal, and you also got Dimmu Borgir, you got Cradle of Filth. There's so many great bands in the symphonic black metal territory that gives me what I appreciate, which is the dark sensibility of black metal, but the technical prowess of symphonic orchestration. And I couldn't love that more. Oh, this is gonna be a fun one for ya. Black Gaze. Now, anyone who doesn't know me, I'm very curious. If you're checking this out, I would love for you to leave a comment. Where am I gonna put this? D, C, B, A, or S? There's a lot that goes into Black Gaze when you got bands like Death Heaven, formerly Vatnet Viscar, Harakiri for the Sky. There's so many different kinds of Black Gaze bands out there. So what can I possibly decide to go with this? Well, final guesses now. 3, 2, 1, and S. I love shoegaze. I love post-metal. I love black metal. And that pop sensibility that's sometimes thrown in there as well. When you combine all those combined, it's an amazingly sexy combination that I just love. Now, black and roll, which I see Kvelertak in there. Great shining example of what black and roll is all about. And I think there's a lot of great bands in this style. I mean, you got Kvelertak, you get Midnight, you have so many others that I'm blanking out on right now as I'm going off the top of my head. But I'm going to give this one a B because there are a lot of bands that do seem to sound the same, and they kind of have just that same thing of like, well, what if we did like Venom and Celtic Frost, but we just give it just enough Dimmu Borgir vocals. Sorry about that, I needed to take a pause for the cause, if you know what that means. And I'm sure you do. Where are we at? War metal, yes. Now for some people, they're gonna think war metal's something like Sabaton. And you're not wrong for thinking that, because it is metal about, you know, war. But this is like bands like Blasphemy, Revenge, and other bands like that where it kind of sounds like you're in the midst of an actual war. The production values are meant to be so terrible that you don't understand what's really going on. It's literally just a wall of noise that you can't differentiate from one path to the other. And if you couldn't tell by the way I'm describing it, boom. Also, I should point out right now that I don't have this in ranked yet. I will be doing that. I will. I just want to get them on the list first, and then we'll have the fun of putting everything together. And I'm gonna do it the right way. Like, right where you see where melodic black metal is right now, that'll be the first place spot. And everything going along that way will just be lesser, and then it's left, right, up, and down. Anyone who doesn't understand that is a tool. Death metal. And I can only imagine that they mean like the classic death metal sounds. Considering you got Morbid Angel here, I imagine it is like the Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, all of those great bands. And that is a solid B for me. Some might think I would rank it higher, but there's other forms of death metal that I just simply enjoy more. And from the looks of it, yeah, a lot more of those will be coming up. And I also gotta admit, I'm surprised that there isn't more progressive genres on this list, because I feel like there's a lot more I could add to that on there. I mean, yeah, I'm really surprised about that. But anyways, Brutal Death gets a D. The reason it gets a D for me is I do appreciate what's going on musically. You know, the blast beats can be absolutely killer and stuff like that, but it comes down to the vocals for me. I will never be able to appreciate it the same way that other people do. And since it's already right there as well, I might as well add slam in there as well. Now again, there are some bands in brutal death and slam death that I actually do like, but not enough for me to put it up higher than a D. Death and roll! Absolute solid C there. I don't think death and roll is as cool to me as black and roll. Black and roll has it just a lot cooler to me. Death and roll has its moments, but I mean, if you gotta take the two, I mean, black and roll easily wins out. Melodic death metal! 1,000,000,000% an S. Arguably my favorite genre. Now that I'm 34 years old, I really feel like, you know, it's just where my mind is at nowadays. And it's funny because I think of other people who put this together who think that melodic death metal, melodic black metal, all those things are redundant, and they're not. Because all you have to do is just listen to raw black metal compared to melodic black metal, and you hear the difference. Same thing when you hear brutal death and melodic death. Huge difference. I wish more people saw that, but what are you gonna do? But yes, some of my all-time favorite bands are melodeath bands. And of course, Finland wins for the best melodic bands per capita. They are just that good. Alright, so I'm seeing tech death here, and I'm seeing death in there. And I've never considered death to be a tech death band. There is some crazy, progressive, and even technical moments in death sound, but I've never considered them to be a tech death band. I've always considered them to either be a death metal band or a progressive death metal band, so this kind of throws me for a loop here. If you're counting death, the whole genre goes into S, but there's some tech death bands that I simply will not enjoy, so for the overall prowess of it all, I'm gonna have to give it a B. Doom metal! Now there's some other doom metal that I see coming up here, so I know it's going to be taking in different places. I'm going to consider this one to be... Never mind, I see traditional doom metal right there, and I see epic doom. So, look here folks, traditional doom and epic doom are the same goddamn thing. So traditional doom is going in redundant. It's the same thing. And the same thing for doom metal. I mean, like, it's such a basic thing, like, you know, it is like a black metal or a death metal. Like, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like Candlemass? Do you mean Bell Witch? Do you mean Sinister Downfall? Do you mean Trouble? There's so many different ways you can go about that. And when you got Death Doom, Drone, Funeral Doom, and Epic Doom covering those spaces, doom metal just seems redundant. Yeah, call me out all you want on it, that's just what I'm doing. Now, Death Doom gets an A. I love me some Death Doom. No matter if it's November's Doom, if it's Autopsy, there's so many great different bands in the genre of so many different styles as well. I love it to pieces. Drone metal, D. There are some bands that easily can just stick to 1 to 4 chords in a 30-minute song and make it work. I am not a fan of those bands. Which is funny because the next one, which I'll talk about in a moment, I feel very, very different about. But when it comes to drone, I need more than just one strum of a note. And that's what it's mainly known for, and just holding that note as long as possible. I can't do it, I'm sorry. But Funeral Doom is my latest obsession over the last couple years. Not my favorite genre, but it is something that I keep going back to all of the time. And I love the fact that they have Bell Witch and Mirror Reaper on there, because that is the finest example of funeral doom metal that there is. And there's so many other great bands. Mournful Congregation might be my overall favorite funeral doom band, although you could also consider them death doom. But I consider them funeral doom. Again, this is my logic, not yours. Mine. And I just think it's a great way to go about things. I mean, I love it slow. I love it dirgy. But there's more to it than just the slow tempo. There's so much more depth to it. 6 feet of depth. But no, seriously. Like, there's so much great that can come from that, and they're the ones that can do like half hour, or in the case of Mirror Reaper, an hour and 23 minutes worth of Funeral Doom that doesn't get old. Unlike Drone Metal, which I can only take for about a couple minutes at a time. That's me. That's just how it is for me. Epic Doom Metal. This I am considering to be of the classic Doom variety because it features Candlemass, and there's no better example of Doom Metal than Candlemass. So for that reason, I'm giving it an A. Doom Metal of that classic variety, when you have those powerful vocals, you got those slower to mid tempos going on, sometimes featuring double bass, sometimes featuring some nice gallop guitars. And of course the vocals are what sell Doom Metal when you got the epic Doom Metal. So yeah, just a fun genre despite its name. I love it. Gothic Metal. Okay. Now again, there's so many different ways that you can look about this, because when you look at Gothic Metal, you know, it's like, is it Moonspell? Is it Moonsorrow? Is it Paradise Lost? Is it Catatonia? Is it Cradle of Filth? Is it Marilyn Manson? There's so many people have a problem with subgenres. For me, it helps decipher all the different genres that are out there, because when you just say everything is metal, you're implying that Van Halen and Cannibal Corpse are the same band, which is just silly, because they're nowhere near the same. So when you can add some subgenres to it, I think it helps. There's going to be people that disagree with me, and that's fine. But for me, you need those subgenres attached to it, and Gothic Metal is one of those that deeply needs subgenres. But if you're going all over with the Gothic Metal, and I'm not seeing anything here that tells me otherwise, yeah, I am going to give it a B. Because there are some bands that I absolutely love, and there are some bands that I never want to hear again. And they could all be considered goth metal. So if you got deeper into goth metal, I'd be able to separate it and differentiate it more. But as it's just a blanket term, that doesn't help. Sludge Metal. Now you have Acid Bath on here, which, fantastic example of sludge metal. But again, there's so many different ways you can look at it. Acid Witch. Or, not Acid, sorry. Acid Bath, Bareness, Intronaut, Kylesa, Biohazard, if you want to even go that far. There's so many different ways you can consider sludge metal. Like there's Sludge Doom, so with that in mind, yeah, I'm gonna give it a C. Yeah, C. Because there's some bands I absolutely love in this genre, and there's some bands that I refuse to ever want to talk about ever again for reasons that are my own that may become clear, maybe if I do some more YouTube videos talking about those bands. We'll see. Stoner Metal I am also giving a C to, because there's so many different ways that you can contribute to Stoner Metal. I mean, when you look at it like this, you can look at something like an Electric Wizard, like Sleep. There's so many different ways that you can go about it, but for me, I'm going to just go with the generalized version of it, so yeah, see. Folk Metal. This is an odd one for me, because there are some bands that I love, some bands that I find to be beyond cheesy. There's some bands that I think need to retire because of some horrible things that they've done, and they can be considered in the folk metal route. There's some bands that I absolutely love forever, to the moon and back. So for that, I'm going to give it a B. And again, in case you're skipping around here, this is not the final form. I'm going to go through that when I'm done with everything. Celtic Metal. Same thing as folk metal. Yeah, I know that sounds weird to say because there's different kinds of folk all around the world. But when you're using folk, it implies different instrumentation than what you would hear, that you would commonly hear in different kinds of folk music, including Celtic music. So to me, those are the same. I apologize. Viking Metal is not a real genre, because Amon Amarth, Enslaved, Unleashed, none of those bands sound alike. Yet you're gonna categorize them all with a Bathory background and say that they're all Viking. No, that's a theme. That's not a genre. Grindcore. Some good old Pig Destroyer right there. Yes, this one's a little difficult for me because I'm trying to figure that one out right now because there's a lot of grind I love. A lot of grind I love. And then there's some that are just irritating to the ears, so... see. Cyber grind. Again, not a real thing. Death grind. Yes, there is a difference when it focuses more on death metal than grind. And for that gets a B. Gore grind. Yes, there is a difference when you focus more on the brutality moments more than grindcore. That's all the more reason why it's going in the D. Gore noise. I'm not a noise guy. So, in you go. And you know what, since we're here and we're almost done anyways, why don't I just throw some stuff in here. Cyber metal's not a real thing. If you're trying to go with modern metal, just call it modern metal. Neue Deutsche Harte is all German metal, from what I understand. So you're basically saying Rammstein and Freedom Call are the same band? That does not count as a genre to me. Transcore, I don't have familiarity with, so I have to throw that in there. Okay, we're really starting to get into some good stuff here, so I'm going to change redundant and make it into boom. That feels a lot better. Alright, whatever. Heavy metal. Yes, everything from Black Sabbath to Deep Purple to Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. It gets a C. There's gonna be so many people pissed off at me for putting that in the C, and... well, that's why it's my list and not yours, isn't it? Look. The more that I'm gonna do these tier lists, that I'm gonna be talking about my favorite bands, talking about my favorite albums, talking about bands in general, the sooner you're gonna realize that just because you were first to do something does not mean you were the best at it. Would you rather have a wheel that was made in 2022? Or would you rather have the first wagon wheel on your car and see what lasts longer? Guarantee you the wheel made in 2022 is going to take you a lot fucking farther. I can get more into that with videos down the road, but as you can see here, I'm going to leave it at C. Glam metal. Now, over the past decade or so, I have really started to appreciate more of glam metal. And by glam metal, I don't mean the standard Motley Crue, Poison type bands. I mean everything from Dokken to Faster Pussycat to Firehouse, Black and Blue, Hurricane. There's so many great underground 80s glam hair bands that are starting to get a bit of love thanks to HBO Max's Peacemaker, which blows my mind. And yeah, I'm actually putting this above heavy metal, which, oh my god, what am I doing? You know? Yeah, it's a B. Here we go. Well, never mind. Heavy metal and new wave of British heavy metal are on two different planes, but they're going to be on the same genre list for the same goddamn reason. Just because you were first, just because you were influential, does not make you the best. Power metal. Without a shadow of a doubt gets an A. Almost an S. Almost. It is so close to being an S, I can taste it. But sometimes you just have to realize that there's some power metal bands that I'm just never going to enjoy. And that's what keeps it from S, unfortunately. Speed metal. Speed metal is another one that gets an A. And it's another one that is so close to S for me because there's so many great speed metal bands and revival metal bands, I'd consider that to be the same thing as well too. Where you have a band like Satan, you have a band like Sumerlands. There's so much in between that fit together so well, and both are keeping the spirit alive to this day, which I love. Industrial metal. And I see they got Godflesh on here. Nice little choice. Industrial is a genre which has some bands, again, that I absolutely love, from Rammstein to Fear Factory to Godflesh to bands like Marilyn Manson, which I just can't support. So what would have been an A, I'm going to have to put down to a C, because that's just not gonna work for me. Metalcore! Yes, you have the finest example of metalcore right here too, with Jane Doe by Converge. Currently on tour with Meshuggah, and I believe Torch is off the bill right now, and or Converge is off the bill and In Flames is replaced. I'm not sure. Or maybe that whole tour's over. Maybe I'm doing this too late. I'm not sure. October 11th, everybody. October 11th. But anyways, metalcore is near and dear to me. And there's so many different ways that you can look at metalcore. Like, are you looking at like the original bands like this, like a Converge, like a Cave In? Are you looking more like Killswitch Engage and Shadows Fall? Are you looking at As Lay Dying? Are you looking at Falling in Reverse? If you're looking at all of it, it gets a C. If you were to differentiate it a bit more, it'd be much higher. Deathcore is another one that gets a C for me, because there are some bands, including what looks to be, I think, Lorna Shore? Yeah, Lorna Shore has, like, blown me the fuck away. Back in 2015, I saw them opening for Deicide, and I thought they were one of the worst bands I ever heard at the time. But they have completely changed their sound. They got rid of their singer who... Well, if you need to know anything more about that, why don't you just go ahead and look on Wikipedia, or just type in Lorna Shore, and you'll probably figure out what happened there. And that's when I saw the band back in 2015 with that alleged individual. But hearing what they're doing now and finally giving them a real chance, them and Despised Icon and Suicide Silence, and yeah, I'd even say Whitechapel and stuff like that, are some great shining examples. Carnifex too, forgot about them. But there are some other bands that you get, like the Attilas and the other one that I'm totally Immure type bands that just on principle I can't support because of douchiness. So yeah, I think C is more than fair. Mathcore, absolute solid B. You got Calculating Infinity by Dillinger Escape Line right there. Such a great shining example of that. There's a lot of mathcore that I do not like, but there's some mathcore that I absolutely love. It's just one of those where I like the genre. Don't love it, don't hate it, I like the genre, and I think B is more than fair. Melodic Metalcore, and I see they have Trivium a part of this. So, are they trying to say that's like the new wave of American heavy metal kind of stuff? If that's the way that you're going about it, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off probably and give that a solid A. Because I love Trivium, outside of a couple albums, and they may not be the ones that you're thinking of, although they very well could be the ones that you're thinking of. Killswitch Engage is one of my favorite bands of all time. I love Shadows Fall. God Forbid is easily the most underrated band of all of them. And yeah, if I had to do it that way, and if you are considering it of that style, then they are a solid A. Post-metal. Post-metal is something that would have been a B for me, or, well, it's a B right now. It would have been more of an A or an S at some point, but I think I've kind of grown out of it to a certain extent, and a lot of the bands that I associated with post-metal seem to have changed their sound away from the traditional post-metal sounds. And that's what holds my interest so much more, rather than just doing the stereotypical post-rock and post-metal. when you can combine it with something, it's glorious. Just like black gaze. Doom gaze. Now, if I had to think about this, it might sound like it's redundant, not a real genre, or not familiar with it. And honestly, I'm more not familiar with it than anything else. But if it's anything like the Minnesota band that I'm thinking of, Earthrise, which it does have like that doomy black gaze, shoegaze feel behind it, if it really is that, then that gets a solid A for me, because I love doom with that kind of atmosphere, where it can have some tinges of black metal to it, and it just has so many layers behind it, which I think is more than fair. Progressive metal. Anyone who's known me long enough knows that progressive metal, for the longest time, was my favorite genre of all time. And that has changed over the years. I'm not entirely sure why, but it has changed over the years. There's still some bands in the progressive metal routes, and again, where's the progressive black metal, where's the progressive death metal? There's so many genres that you could add to the prog style that I don't see here. But with that in mind, there's so much about prog that I do love, but there's some that I just like more as a friend, more than falling in love with. And I hate saying it, but the band that's shown right there, Dream Theater, is one of those bands. And I came to a realization last year that as much as I didn't want to admit it, and I tried fighting it tooth and nail, not believing it for a second, like, no, this can't be true. It is true. I love Dream Theater with Mike Portnoy more. And the stuff with Mike Mangini, despite him being one of the world's greatest drummers, just does not hit me the same. And I hate saying that, because they were my favorite band of all time at one point. But it's just not the case anymore. But there's other bands in that genre, Chef's Kiss, will always be some of my favorites of all time. Gent. Oh boy, okay. I see they have Meshuggah in here despite them being like Black Sabbath, where are they a metal band? Or did everyone copying them become that style? Because Meshuggah invented their own sound. And then so many people started to copy it, and then they coined the phrase gent. Just like Black Sabbath with metal. Funny enough, I had this conversation in a group chat on Facebook just several days ago. But I have fallen out of gent so deep. And it's not really because of the style. It's just that I loved it. I think I had a short infatuation with it. Loved it for a little bit of time. Loved all the kicks that I got out of it. And then just got out of it. I can appreciate what's going on musically. And even when I was still playing drums, like before gent really started to hit, like I really wanted to match the style of what Meshuggah was doing. Like, I loved the idea of like being able to match the guitar, bass, and bass drum to match all together. And I love that there's a genre like that, but it just does not hold up for me the same way. Here we go. A bit of some thrash metal for you. Starting with Metallica, Master of Puppets, for the thrash metal route, and ooh. Not a real genre, right? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, let's get that back at the top. No, what am I doing? It's not an ass genre for me. It is C. Heresy. Blasphemy. How dare I put Metallica and other thrash bands like them in the middle of the pack? Well, that's the breaks, little man. Break it down. Metallica was the very first band, like a lot of people of my age, a little bit older, a little bit younger. Metallica was the first band they got into. But I had such an infatuation with Metallica for years where I wouldn't even want to listen to another band. All I did listen to was Metallica. Then Saint Anger came out. I needed to find something different. And I discovered progressive metal from there, and I discovered Dream Theater and Opeth the same day. because I bought Train of Thought and Deliverance the same day. And that changed my musical genre love forever. And for thrash, there's some bands like Testament and Death Angel that I will love forever. And there's other bands like 3 of the Big 4, and even that last one of the Big 4, I only like the John Bush era. Yeah, gotta put it all in C. Crossover thrash. Yes, that is actually going up higher, and I think that is more than worthy of being a B. Speak English or Die. Can you imagine if that album came out this year? Holy shit. But seriously, there's so much to love about crossover thrash, from SOD to Suicidal Tendencies to Corrosion of Conformity to DRI, Municipal Waste. There's so many great bands in that genre. Some of it starts to sound the same after a while, but when you find those bands that continue to do something different with it, or they have their own sound to begin with, and they know how to make it fun from album to album, it just doesn't get better than that when it comes to thrash. Now, technical thrash. To me, this was always Revocation, but apparently people consider them a tech death band. I don't, but other people do. But considering you have Vector on there, oh, it's just like Burzum. It makes me want to just... Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's my gut telling me. I see Vector right there, I see Burzum right there, and having them on the lowest of the low that I can have, that I can really articulate, unlike these ones, which are not real things. Yeah, it's the bottom of the pack. I just gotta. Call me a leftist cuck all you want to. That's just how I am. Avant-garde metal. There's so many different ways to go about this as well. Bluntus Nord, Dogfish and Disco, Imperial Triumphant, Boris. So many different things that you can consider them. But they are going to be a B for me. Because I appreciate the fact that they do things differently. Where you can have a band like Imperial Triumphant, you can have a band like KO Dot, and they can sound completely different. Incorporate jazz, noise, blues, metal, tech. So many things. Like, there's no genre that they have to control themselves into, confine themselves into. They can do what they want to in this genre. Sometimes that's for the worst, sometimes that's for the best. Only 2 left here. Neoclassical, which of course, you know, Yngwie or Racer X or anything like that. Some good stuff there. I'm not as well versed in it as other people that I know, so I'm gonna have to put it in a C for that reason, just because I'm not as well versed in it. But there's some serious class in this and some amazing work, and I should check out more, but everything that I have heard, I do love. And finally, Symphonic Metal is a band that's more than worthy of getting an A. The only thing that's keeping this from being an S is the fact that there are some bands that are just not my bag, baby. There are some bands that I just don't think that I'll ever truly appreciate in Symphonic Metal, while there's other ones that I will always love. And the ones that I always love mean way more to me than the ones that don't, so with that in mind, give that an A, and this is the preliminary round for what we got here. I'm going to take a quick edit, and you will see me right back here in 3, 2, 1. And we are back, and we're going to start right off here at the bottom. None of these are real genres, so don't count them. Considering there's other people who've worked on this list that took off all but like 10 or 11 genres, if that. I think narrowing things down to just 9 is not that bad. But going from countdown style in the D genre, starting with what I like the least to what I like the most in every tier, we got new metal, war metal, atmospheric black metal, technical thrash metal, gent, gore noise, gore grind, drone metal, slam death metal, brutal death, and raw black metal. In the C tier, we got stoner metal, funk metal, deathcore, alternative metal, neoclassical metal, heavy metal, new wave of British heavy metal, thrash metal, sludge metal, industrial metal, grindcore, death and roll, metalcore, and black metal. In the B genre, starting from the bottom to the top, now we're here, death grind, mathcore, folk metal, avant-garde metal, gothic metal, death metal, glam metal, black and roll, pulse metal, crossover thrash, and tech death. In the A genre, which there probably should be more here that's in the S genre, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that quick. No, that just one. Okay, technical black metal, pagan black metal, symphonic metal, doom gaze, depressive black metal, speed metal, epic doom metal, death doom, and melodic metal core. And now for my 7 favorite that made into the S tier. Boom. No, wait. There we go. Symphonic black metal, melodic black metal, progressive metal, power metal, funeral doom, black gaze, and probably my favorite genre of all, melodic death metal. And there we go, folks. All of the genres shown off here to the best of my abilities in the metal genres tier list maker. This is Josh Ronquist for the Heavy Debriefings podcast. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. You don't need me to tell you to like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. If you do, you'll already do it. I take you to be smart enough to be able to enjoy what you enjoy. So if you did enjoy it, you'll be doing all those things. And I'll very much appreciate you for it. And if you didn't, I'm sure I'll see some comments for it. But you know what? That's okay. Because we all have differences. And honestly, outside of like just a few of these genres, not counting this, just a couple in the D one, I like all of these genres. All of them. And there's bands that might be in a C or D tier that are like S bands for me. That's just how it works. But I do like how this one came off, so I hope you enjoy this list. I will certainly be doing more to catch up with all of the others that have already done this, but why not be able to include it myself? And just one more look here as I'm talking. There you go, folks. And once again, one last time, thank you very much for checking this gargantuan list out. I can't wait to be doing more of these. Of course, if you like what you saw, you know what to do. Don't need me to spell it out for you, but if nothing else, check out some of the other stuff that I do, including what is now 846 interviews I've done this as That Drummer Guy, and now with Heavy Debriefings, thatdrummerguy.com for all of the heavy debriefing needs and all that good stuff. So, until next time, for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, this is Josh Ronquist saying, see ya.